Here are 10 ideas to inspire your next campaign, including 2 that are ideas for episodic campaigns and 1 that is intended to be a mega dungeon. If you want to guarantee player engagement in your next campaign, then have your players help choose the campaign. Pick your 3 favorite of these ideas and pitch them to your players and then have them vote on their favorite. Thank you so much to Describe for sponsoring this video. More on that later. Welcome to the table. I'm Kelly and I'm gonna write a joke here later. Don't forget. Shout out to my friend Henry. This first one is my twist on his current campaign. A plague is ravaging the world. Your party wakes up in a hospital. They are the only survivors. They were adventurers, and because of somewhere they've been or something they've interacted with, they did not die from this plague. They'll need to retrace their steps from their previous adventures to figure out what it was. The only problem? This near-death experience has wiped their memories. They must follow their clues from the items on their person to figure out where they've been and find the cure to this plague. This is an idea for a survival and exploration style campaign mixed with a mystery. You have a lot of flexibility to reimagine familiar settings as a post-apocalyptic wasteland. You also have flexibility with monster types. How has the plague affected different creatures? I imagine this as The Last of Us meets Born Identity. As your players explore a post-apocalyptic wasteland, they get flashbacks that lead them to the next clue. The flashback device is also really useful as a DM because you can use it to feed information to your party at any time. Need a plot hook and no one else is around? No problem, they touched a rock and remembered something. Exploration and investigation not the right speed for your party? How about being mercenary assassins for a divine being? Working their way through the deck of cards, knocking out each lieutenant until they take on the ace. Here's the setup. One day, without warning and without any grand departure, the gods abandoned the world. Any casters who gained their magic from a deity, without warning, found themselves unable to cast magic. Healing potions and services have skyrocketed in cost, preventing most from being able to access magical healing. Churches and organized religions have dwindled, and wizard schools and magic institutions have flourished. Those who have been able to take advantage of the desperate situation have profited beyond their wildest dreams. Your party is suddenly bestowed with the gift of magic and magical knowledge. It seems that one minor deity has escaped the fate of the rest of the gods. The deity offers the players more magic abilities in exchange for the death of certain beings and entities. The players will need to gain the trust of the deity by completing each task and slowly proving their worth. It seems that the gods did not abandon this world of their own volition, but are being kept away, and the only way to bring them back is to remove each of the entities keeping them away. Will your party accept each mission without question, or will they start to investigate this deity and exactly how it managed to escape the fate of the much stronger divine beings? Is this actually a god, or is it some sort of minor devil making a play for power? Perhaps this minor devil is just pretending to be a god, but they are actually looking to take over, and they need the help of the players to weaken the devils who are in power by removing their lieutenants. What happens when your party takes out that final ace? I'll leave that up to you. This next one could work well as a hex crawl or as a survival and base building campaign. Your party are crew members on a ship. The ship is wrecked in a terrible storm, a storm greater and more fierce than any they've seen before. They wash up on the beach and find that they are the only survivors. As they start to explore their surroundings, they realize that they are no longer on the material plane. This storm was an interdimensional anomaly. They must explore this new world, work with the locals, and gather supplies in order to gain the knowledge and materials that will allow them to get back home. To run this as a hex crawl, just list out the items and supplies that they need and make it clear that these items are out in this world. Then as they explore each hex and solve each problem, reward them with one of the pieces. To run this as a base building campaign, make it so that they need to repair and retrofit their ship in a special way to get back home. This will anchor them to that location. Also, making it dangerous to be out at night and making it clear that if they leave the ship unprotected, then it will be scavenged for parts, will encourage them to build some sort of base as they work on their ship. And of course, in order to gain the parts and supplies they need, they'll have to complete quests and work with the locals. Part wilderness campaign, part urban mystery. This next one has the best of both. Daylight is slowly disappearing and the world is being plunged into permanent darkness. This change has been slow over the course of decades, but has increased in speed over the last few years. As endless night falls over towns and cities, crops die and people are forced to adapt or move. Most choose to follow the daylight. As darkness befalls your player's town, they find a map tracking the progression of this endless night. It's not random or uniform, it's a circle, and it's closing in on one city. Your players must travel to this city of last light, uncovering the mystery as they travel and facing whoever is behind it when they arrive. There's lots of flexibility as far as who is behind this, depending on what type of story you want to tell. Did the ruler of this city make a deal with powerful artificers who are building a massive sunshade above the world so that this city would be the only food supplier in the world? Or perhaps it's a mystery to the rulers of this city as well, and they welcome any help they can get from the players. Maybe it's the result of a conflict between the sun god and the god of darkness. The sun god is losing this battle, and since their most devout live in the city of last light, this is where they've decided to make their last stand. Are you looking for more of an episodic campaign where players can come and go week to week? One that allows for complete flexibility in the style and tone of adventure you run? But first, I want to tell you about a cool new feature in Opus. Thank you so much to Describe for sponsoring this video. For those who are unfamiliar, Describe helps players and DMs by providing a massive library of description text, interactive maps, and now sound effects and music. The description text is so useful for sparking inspiration. Just reading through their location descriptions instantly gives me ideas for whole settings and worlds. Their spell component and magic item descriptions also give me a ton of ideas for interesting encounters. Now they've partnered with Michael Gelfi Studios and other renowned composers to create a new music and sound effects tool called Opus. You can create playlists, soundscapes, and sound effects boards, then invite your players and stream the audio directly to them. You can also use Opus with Kenku FM to stream it over Discord. They've been working on the responsiveness and mobile design of the site, which is such an awesome feature. I use Opus with Kenku FM over Discord, so now I can control the music and sounds from my phone, which frees up more room on my computer screen. There's music and sound effects for different genres, including fantasy, modern, and sci-fi, so you can run any type of game or setting. I've been really enjoying their pre-made playlists for most of my sessions, but for big moments it's awesome to be able to prepare a specific song, description text, and ambience to make it really impactful. Opus is still in beta, which means it's getting better every day, but it's already really awesome. If you want to try it out, you can use the coupon code PowerWordSpill at checkout to get an extended 30-day free trial. Head to the link down in the description to check it out. In a forgotten corner of the astral plane exists a secret organization, the Keepers of the Strand. In this universe, there are many timelines, each an alternate reality. Each reality and timeline is a strand. The strands are woven together through intersecting events into the fabric of time. Sometimes the events in a strand take an unexpected turn, and the timeline becomes so different that it detaches from the fabric completely. It's the job of the Keepers of the Strand to go back and alter such events so that the strand may be woven back into the fabric. Through a magic hall of portals, agents of the strand can access any time and place. Each session, your players are assigned a mission from management and must drop into the time and place and then call for extraction once it's complete. Will your players accept every mission, or will they begin to wonder who dictates what each timeline should look like and what their true motivations are? Because your players can go into any time, place, or reality, you can run pretty much any adventure in this campaign. One week you can run a noir investigation, the next you can run a good old mini dungeon, and the next you can run a political intrigue adventure. This is potentially a lot of work for you as the GM because you need to come up with a new world and new characters each week. But if you just pick and choose one-shot adventures that you can tweak to fit your narrative, then most of the work should be done for you. Taking a page from Brennan and Dimension 20, let's do one where capitalism is the bad guy. A new resource is discovered in the world, allowing for the easy creation of magical items and the use of those items by the common people. This resource has only been found in one area. A massive city has sprung up around the mines as the world goes through a technological revolution. The city has modern comforts such as running water and tram transportation, but also a severe housing crisis as the population swells. The surrounding kingdoms dwindle and die out as people flock to this new city with dreams of a better life. The resource is controlled by a single corporation, the head of which remains in the shadows. This entity has quickly become more powerful than any other monarch or ruler on the plane, and now holds the power to shape the world in their palm. Your party move to this city seeking a new start, and they work in the dangerous mines. When they stumble upon a secret that the corporation wants to bury, they are thrust into the middle of a conflict between a faction of revolutionaries seeking to liberate this resource, and the corporation who wants to maintain their stranglehold of power at all costs. Imagining how a fantasy world would look if the balance of power was suddenly turned on its head is really intriguing to me. I think there are opportunities for a variety of adventures within this style of campaign. Heist missions where the players need to break in and steal an item or information from the corporation, sabotage missions where they need to strike key infrastructure, political intrigue where they need to recruit high-level members of the corporation to the revolution, discovering who the mole is in their faction, chases as they escape the corporation's militia, and plenty of fetch quests as underground scientists try to replicate and manufacture this resource to democratize democratize it. What about a good old mega dungeon? An entire campaign that takes place as one massive dungeon crawl, but also allows for constantly evolving and changing monsters. Deep below the material plane, an entity of chaos attempted to break the barriers between the planes of existence to disrupt the natural order throughout the universe. They were able to create a planar black hole. The force caused the planes of existence to collide and meld together. The radius of the effect is not what this entity had hoped for, and they are actively trying to increase it. From hundreds of miles away, the effects are subtle. Fire burns hotter in pockets as the elemental plane of fire seeps through. Rains become heavier and more frequent as the elemental plane of water comes through. In some areas, objects weigh slightly less as the astral plane's lack of gravity affects the material plane. Nearer to the source, creatures from other planes start to be seen, and the environmental effects increase in strength. The town that your player characters are from is within the radius, and attacks from extraplanar creatures are becoming unmanageable. Your party decides to do something about this chaos, and are tipped off that most of the monsters are coming from the entrance of an old abandoned mine near town. As they delve underground to find the source of this chaos, they must not only deal with the traps and defenses left by the entity of chaos to ensure their work isn't interrupted, but also the constantly changing terrain, environmental effects, and a variety of monsters as the planes of existence are thrown into a magical blender. Having random planar effects throughout this dungeon means that you can constantly change the environment and landscape with each level of the dungeon, or even within each level. It also gives you the freedom to throw pretty much any monsters at your party, not just ones that would normally exist underground. As your party progresses, they gain experience and items until they are eventually strong enough to face the entity of chaos on the highest peak of the lowest dungeon, or whatever cool environment is swirling at the bottom of this planar black hole. The next one is a campaign where your players work for the library, and they're kind of known as the badasses of the office. Your party works for one of the great libraries. They've worked there for a few years in junior positions, but recently their transfers were approved and they are the newest members of the MTRD. The Magical Text Recovery Department are the badasses of the library. Their job is simple: recover irreplaceable magical texts at any cost. The Great Library contains many irreplaceable magical texts that cannot be copied for one reason or another. Instead of just mandating that these texts can't be borrowed, the library has instead chosen to employ the services of the MTRD. Sometimes it's a simple case of a wizard just forgetting to return a book, but sometimes someone borrows a book with the intention of never returning it. In either case, having the MTRD crash through your door will make you think twice. As the newest members of the MTRD, your players will start with some easier cases, like the group of kobolds who stole a book on dragon ancestry and inheritance and are refusing to give it back. But perhaps one day they'll get a chance at the unsolvable case, a book that was checked out prior to the library's existence and never returned. This one could be an episodic style campaign, or it could be a serial campaign if there's a through plot of all these magical texts being stolen. If a city was physically torn apart into floating islands, who would take control of each of them? 10 years ago, the material plane shattered like a pane of glass. The sound was like nothing you've ever heard, and the shaking caused the collapse of most buildings as the earth was pried apart. Chasms opened up all over the plane, dropping into astral abyss. The center point of the shatter? A city in the north. Further out, the chasms are more spread out, but closer to the city, they are greater in number. 10 years to the day from the shattering, your players each receive a dream where a divine being places a key into their hand, and when they awake, they find themselves holding it. Engraved on the key is the address to a building in the shattered city. As each character travels to the city, they meet the other characters through chance encounters. Or maybe someone is pulling the strings of fate? Traveling to the city is a task in of itself, as the world is a much more dangerous place since the shattering. Once they arrive in the shattered city, they find it's been split into 4 floating islands. The first island contained the city's government buildings before the shattering, and has built strong bridges tying it to the island that contained the guard barracks. These 2 islands operate almost the same as before the shattering. The third island contained the trading and industrial district and has been taken over by a ruthless crime family. It's a dangerous district that most avoid at all costs. People and goods are highly controlled and the bridge crossing is heavily guarded. The fourth island has been shrouded in a magical fog since the shattering. Anyone who has attempted to cross the chasm has never returned. The address on the keys? It's in the 4th district. I picture this sort of like Arcane with the additional twist of a magically shrouded area. There are many different types of adventures you could run in a setting like this. With distinct factions, the party may need to work with each one to gain different things they need. Once they go to the shrouded island, do they find a horrorscape or a paradise? Has no one returned because they were killed, or because the gods have made some sort of paradise on Earth and no one wants to leave? What will it take for the gods to repair the plane? There's a poll over on my Patreon right now, and if you're part of the $5 tier, you can vote on which of these was your favorite. At the end of the month, I'm going to write a one-shot for the start of your favorite idea and put it out on the Patreon. Head to the link down in the description to vote. Number 10 is a detailed template that you can use to make a campaign entirely based on your players' backstories. And because your players are involved in shaping the world right from the start, they'll probably be pretty engaged in the campaign. You can also run this multiple times and it'll be different every time. You can check out this video here for that template. I appreciate you.